Call to order the April 1st, 2021 business meeting of the Clackamas County Commission. Gary, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair Smith. First, our staff support today, Christina Twilliger, Clerk to the Board, Nate Boderman, County Counsel. Roll call, and all commissioners are present in the room today. Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here. I will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you would like to join us on the Zoom app for this meeting, and if you are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. With that in mind, I would like to remind all participants, including staff, all elected officials, and the members of public, that Robert's Rules of Order will be enforced during this meeting. And before I introduce Gary, I just want to remind people that this meeting could go long today. We will break for 5 minutes at the appropriate time and then return to resume immediately. I know commissioners have conflicts in schedules today, as I too have been invited, but I ask that the commissioners remain here today because this is our charge on Thursdays to conduct the business of the county. Thank you all very much for that. Gary, would you please introduce the first item?
Yes, thank you, Chair Smith. This is not on the agenda, but it is a quick update on the matter of a dog that was scheduled to be euthanized. And we want to give you an update today for a quick head nod of your approval to move forward on issues you've discussed about this matter. So Scott Seco is the county counsel assigned to this. If you give a quick high-level update of what this is about, and then to confirm what we're asking the board to do today. Thank you,
Sure.
Scott.
Thank you, Administrator Schmidt. Good morning, Chair Smith and commissioners. As you are all aware, there is an ongoing issue with a dog named Laddick that was sentenced to be euthanized after it bit a infant on the head, causing serious injury. The county has been involved in extended litigation over this matter. Currently, we are at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals trying to get this matter resolved. Thus far, the county's decision to euthanize the dog has been affirmed. However, nonetheless, there's always additional cost and risk involved with ongoing litigation. And so we are here today to at least give an approval in principle to settling this case with the plaintiffs. And that settlement will entail the dog going to a rescue in Southern California where it will be permanently kept in sanctuary, not adopted back out to any families. It will be kept away from children, where it will not hopefully bite or harm anyone further. In addition, the plaintiffs will pay all boarding costs to the county accrued over the last several months where the county has been keeping this dog in its shelter. Those boarding costs are significant, and they will be paid in full as part of this settlement agreement. And also in exchange for sparing the dog's life, the full dismissal of the lawsuit will be had with no damages owing to the plaintiffs. So that is what I am asking this board today to approve in principle. There will be some final paperwork to work out, but hopefully if the board agrees, we will be on track to get this dog out of our shelter this weekend and on its way to its sanctuary.
So Scott, you say you want the dog, and I know commissioners want to comment on this. You say the dog is to be transferred this weekend. Has payment been made in full to Clackamas County taxpayers?
The payment has not been made in full yet. The total owing for the boarding of the dog is $7,500. Of that, approximately half has been paid, and the second half will be paid pursuant to the settlement agreement in installments. So
in where?
4 installments.
I don't believe that this board agreed to the monthly installments, and I am not inclined to release the dog until all payments are made in full. And I thought we were pretty clear in that during our executive sessions. And this is why. That dog has a known reputation for attacking children. That dog was supposed to have been muzzled. And the owners of the dog did not muzzle the dog. The dog attacked the owner's own infant child, who then was taken to the hospital with multiple stitches and staples in the head. Now, I consider the owners to be somewhat suspect in agreeing to continue their payments after we have released the dog. So I'm inclined, and I hope the board supports me in this, that dog is not released until Clackamas County taxpayers have been made whole. And I understand there's an additional charge of $29 a day that they will incur until payment is made in full. Thank you very much. Commissioner Savas. And Commissioner Savas, you have a button. Did you see that? It's where your bag is.
Oh, it's way over here.
Yeah, so do that. And commissioners, we all have buttons, so if you want to talk, that's the best way that I can see that. But Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with the chair's memory. That was mine as well. But I just want to say the other question I had, or the question I had was, we are 100% indemnified in any future event.
That's correct. The rescue is agreeing as part of the settlement, if it moves forward, to indemnify the county for the life of the dog. And also, the county will be named as an additional insured on a liability policy, and that insurance policy will be essentially the guarantee to ensure that we are, in fact, indemnified if something else happens with the dog.
Okay, and then following up on the chair's statements, I believe we did kind of agree, and we did discuss, that. And is there any other, in lieu of full payment, I mean, what security or remedy do we have for non-payment?
The remedy for non-payment, and if I can just quickly address the installments, I'm told that this family simply does not have the money at this time. And again, there is interest from the rescues and from staff to get the dog out of the shelter. But nonetheless, obviously, we'll go with the will of the board here. The insurance to make sure that the full amount is paid is that we will have a breach of contract action. If they violate the settlement agreement, once we go forward with that, we can then garnish wages. We can take a number of steps to collect on the judgment that we would obtain. And that would be through a small claims court. It would be a relatively quick and inexpensive process from a legal standpoint if we needed to do that, if we did get to that point.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's, I got concerns, as I think that I would echo the chair's concerns about that. That's not what we agreed on.
I'd like to follow-up comment. You say these people cannot afford to pay. These people have exhausted every single court remedy all the way to the Ninth Circuit Court. They seem to have had someplace along the line enough resources to do that. Also, I understand that there's a GoFundMe account online on Facebook someplace. And this board has received many emails from people wanting us not to euthanize the dog. I suggest that those owners and maybe a commissioner on this body reach out and start fundraising to keep the dog. And I also want to remind the public, there has been 10 decisions and affirmations all through the court systems, lower courts and the higher court, that we are within our rights to euthanize this dog. We have been compassionate with the pleas from everybody, but we must also ensure public safety, and we also must protect the taxpayers and our dog services. We're trying to thread a very fine needle here. But these owners said that they would pay. These owners need to pay the restitution owed to Clackamas County. Thank you, Scott. Any other comments? So with that in mind, Gary, what is...
You have a light on.
I have a light on. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Scott, how much is in those 4 installments? How many dollars? What does that amount to?
$3,800 is a total, so each installment, double checking my math, I believe is $950.
So it's $3,800 that is owed after.
What's outstanding?
So I guess my position on this, and I've said this, I had a mentor once who told me, as I was zealously advocating a case, he said, Sonia, principals can be very, very expensive. It might be something that you want to do, but it can be very expensive. And so, as I hear this discussion today, I hear that this is a matter of principle, making sure that Clackamas County is made whole, because it costs us to have the shelter, it costs us to board a dog, and we don't recover all of our costs. So I get that principle. I think that is a very valued perspective. On the practical side, I see $3,800 with a contract and an agreement to cover that in 4 installments. I do know from what Scott, what you're saying is absolutely true. We can absolutely enforce a contract and get recovery for that. What I'm concerned about is the costs on the other side, which are the costs of our staff, continuing our costs of our legal counsel, going back and renegotiating. I did see an email from Scott letting us know that these were the terms, and this is what we're going to be discussing today. Nobody objected that I knew before that. We didn't bring this back to executive session to discuss. So I, for one, would like to see this resolved today, and I will support us moving forward under the terms that county council has agreed on, with full faith that our legal counsel, because they're really good lawyers, that they will execute our interests if need be down the line.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I just want to say a few words as someone who was married to a veterinarian for years and been a longtime dog owner. Oftentimes with the dogs, it's not the dog's fault, it's the owner's. And I've always had the principle, if any one of my dogs ever bit one of my children like that, I would have immediately, sadly, wouldn't like to do that. I would have euthanized the dog. So I want to make that clear to everybody, because if you can't control your dog, they're not the right breed for you. They're not the right fit for you. And there are multiple training opportunities with dogs that you can help ameliorate things. But when a dog becomes dangerous, it's pretty significant. And, some breeds are more stubborn than others. I mean, I've got not going to go into detail, a Pomeranian that I call the local terrorist in the community, little dog, big personality kind of a thing. But I've had to learn how to, make her, I'm the alpha. And I'm torn about this because I really blame the owners more than I blame the dog. They should have, that dog should have been trained. That dog, if even had growled at a child, needed to be placed someplace else. And I think that, to me, is the gross negligence. And I've never said that publicly about the people that own the dog, but that it's a shame that their bad behavior in training the dog, not training the dog, and or keeping a dog that seemed aggressive towards a child, that they didn't take care of it sooner. With that being said, and feeling like it's really more the owners, I am inclined to agree with Chair, just to let you know, with Commissioner Fisher. I think get the dog out of here, get the dog in a place where it can live its life out. I would prefer to get all the money up front. If that's not possible, if I need to get on the phone to fundraise to help pay for this, I'd be glad to do it, honestly. I will, because I think these people should be forced to go to their GoFundMe account and get that money to us as soon as possible. But I think that Commissioner Fisher's words with this have been, that makes sense to me too, because we're just going to keep, dog control in this county and dog issues have always been one of the biggest things we deal with. In all the years I've been here, dog issues are always absolutely the stickiest issues that we have to deal with, not only with how we house them and where we bring them, but what we do with dogs of this sort. So I'm okay going forward with it reluctantly, but because I think Chair Smith has a point. These people have abused our taxpayer dollars. They really have, seriously. And I'm not going to defend that either. But it's unfortunate that we have people like that who feel like they can do that to the county, and that they are very, very bad dog owners. So, okay.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, not here to argue this at all, but just want to just say that I don't see it as a matter of principle. If it was a matter of principle, we wouldn't be talking about a settlement. We wouldn't have compromised both the court's decisions, previous court's decisions, and we wouldn't have compromised our cost recovery. We're not getting 100% cost recovery. Let's just be honest. Okay?
That's right.
I mean, the fact that we're even sitting here talking about it, I did some math a long time ago. It's about $15,000 an hour for us to have a meeting like this.
Yeah.
Okay? So we're not going to get full cost recovery. But I'm not willing to trade one court case for a different court case of collection. So
There's that.
to me, we're just trading. A global settlement's a global settlement, and I just want to, the other thing I forgot to ask, I'm going to switch gears here, is that just the assurances that the transport is done by who, to just ensure that from point A to point B, that the dog gets to the destination. So we're indemnified the minute the dog is released from our shelter by the shelter that's taking the dog.
Correct. The rescue accepts full responsibility for the dog upon the initial transfer of possession. So when it leaves our shelter, it then becomes the responsibility of the rescue.
Yeah. I just want to put it out there that we're not getting cost recovery, and we have compromised in two significant ways here today. So this is not principled in my book.
Thank you, Commissioner Saps. Commissioner Scholl.
Mr. Seiko, if we miss the window this weekend for transportation of the dog to Southern California, does that put us at risk of losing that rescue center for taking the dog at a later date?
I haven't heard any indication from the rescue that would jeopardize their willingness to take the dog or their ability to transport the dog. I just know that folks are anxious to get the dog out of the shelter on both sides, frankly.
Okay, thank you.
So can I ask?
So, this case is something that this new board inherited. I don't know how many here it's April.
Mm-hmm.
This case has been deliberated by this board last year. I don't know how long. And Paul's right. If this meeting costs $15,000 an hour, how much county council time has been spent? How many council time in executive session with commissioners has been spent on this? I am in the same camp as Commissioner Savas is. We're not going to trade this court case for another. These people have not been noble. They have not been trustworthy, and I am not the least bit interested in a payment situation from somebody who refuses to muzzle a dog and lets their own infant child be attacked by a dog that they knew was dangerous. Now, I will say something else. If that dog had attacked a child from any other person in society, this would have been a national headline. We would have been on the 6 o'clock evening news. So I am not willing to take a payment situation. And I thought we made that very clear. I made that very clear, Mr. Seiko, in executive session. So we're going to have a head nod, commissioners. And the head nod is this: full recovery of the dog, full cost recovery of the dog, and then it will be released. And by the way, we are saving this dog's life, and we are protecting public safety. But like Sonia Fisher says, there is a cost. So, head nods, commissioners.
Yep.
One. Savas? Yes.
Yep.
I'm okay with the contract. I
Okay.
think we need to be done with this.
Thank you, Sonia. 4-1, full cost recovery, and then the dog is released. Thank you, board. I appreciate your opinions. Gary, next up.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Scott. Next, we will move to the Housing Authority consent agenda. Christina, would you please bring into the meeting Housing Commissioner Ann Leenstra, who is on Zoom, and Chair Smith, if you would announce the board will be switching hats for this.
I will now announce the board will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Housing Authority for the next item.
All right, Christina, would you please read the consent agenda by title only?
Yes, there is just one item. It's approval of a resolution number 1953 under the Housing Authority 2021 Annual Plan, $16,077,000 for Section 8 vouchers, $1,890,000 in public housing funds, and $1,382,947 in capital grant program funds No general funds are involved. And that's your consent agenda.
Does any commissioner wish to remove any item or this item? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I move for approval of the Housing Authority consent agenda.
May I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved the Housing Authority consent agenda. It's been seconded by Commissioner Savas. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes,
Can
Commissioner
we mention that we have Ann here today from the Housing Authority?
Yes,
Commissioner
and yes, would you like to introduce her, Commissioner Schrader?
This is Ann Linstra, and she is on our board of the Housing Authority, and she is our representative here from the Housing Authority. So she sits with us as a peer on this committee, pretty much on our council as we move through these housing agendas. So welcome, Ann. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Commissioner Linstra, do you have any comments you'd like to make on this particular agenda item?
Not particularly.
Okay.
Thank you. Hearing none, Christina, would you please call the poll?
Of course. Commissioner Leenstra,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
and Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 6-0. I will now announce the board will adjourn as a Housing Authority Board and reconvene as a Board of County Commissioners. Gary, what's next?
Next, Chair Smith, is a presentation for a proclamation to make April 2021 Grange Month in Clackamas County. Commissioner, and I'll present this. The Redland Grange, number 796, has requested that the Board of County Commissioners declare April 2021 as Grange Month in Clackamas County, which you have done for at least the last 18 years, probably much longer than that. So this is just to honor our Granges for the work that they do and to recognize April 2021 as Grange Month. Commissioner Schrader has agreed to read the proclamation. It's very short, so Commissioner Schrader, would you please read the proclamation?
Okay. Proclaiming April 2021 as Grange Month in Clackamas County. Whereas since 1867, the Grange has been a grassroots movement for the benefit of American families and local communities. And whereas Grange programs are family-oriented, beginning with Junior Grange for children of ages 4 through 13, for the purpose of getting children involved with their community, with agriculture, and with good citizenship. And whereas Grange activities support personal development, leadership seminars, and foster a wide range of useful skills and abilities for personal growth through social, cultural, and educational programs. And whereas Grange members attend public meetings, inform themselves of local, state, and national issues, and speak on behalf of those working in agriculture, producing food, fuel, and fiber. And whereas members of the 16 active Granges in Clackamas County ignite a passion in the community for service and involvement in outcomes of Grange advocacy are felt by nearly every citizen of Clackamas County today. Now, therefore, the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim April 2021 as Grange Month in Clackamas County. We urge the citizens of the county to recognize and participate in Grange activities and support Clackamas County Granges, dated this first day of April 2021. Let's really give a hand for our Granges. They do great work in our county. And in my experience, the Granges have the best breakfast that you can ever get anywhere. And if you can give us your dates of meeting where we can join you as commissioners and get that on our calendars, we would really appreciate it. Okay.
Martha, may I have a motion?
Yes, I move that we proclaim April 2021 as Grange Month in Clackamas County.
Seconded.
The motion has been made by Commissioner Schrader and seconded by Commissioner Scholl. Is there any further discussion or comment? I'd like to say I've been a Grange member for most of my life. There's a Grange not too far from me, Clark's Grange in the country, and they have wonderful catering services. Yes, ma'am, they catered my daughter's wedding, as a matter of fact. Seeing no other comments, Christina, would you please call the poll?
Of course. Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
and Chair Smith.
Aye. The proclamation has been approved 5-0. Gary, what's next?
Next, Chair Smith, is a public hearing, which is a first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 10.03, Determination of Waste Management Fees. We have Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, and I believe Nate Boderman as well will present. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Christina, could I ask you to bring Evan Polk in as well if there are technical questions the board may have?
Absolutely.
Chair Smith, members of the Board of County Commissioners, that's awkward. We're here today to talk about a possible amendment to our waste code. I want to give you some quick background. Essentially, on Tuesday, February 22nd, 2021, Mr. John DiLorenzo made a presentation to the Board of County Commissioners proposing an ordinance amendment to County Code Chapter 10-03, Determination of Waste Management Fees. In response to this testimony, the board proposed several questions and requested that staff convene a solid waste commission for them to review and comment on the proposed ordinance. Mr. DiLorenzo did make some small revisions to that ordinance proposal, which were forwarded to the Solid Waste Commission, and staff reported back at a policy session on March 9th, 2001. At that point, the Board of County Commissioners took a vote and requested that we bring this forward to you for the first reading. I will tell you that within your packet, on page 2, there's background information about the current fee review process, and there is also information around the proposed ordinance. On pages 3 and 4, there are answers to the various questions the board had asked that we provided you some information regarding that. And with that, we are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Does staff, do commissioners, pardon me, have any questions of Dan Johnson at this time? Okay, with that in mind, we will start with our public testimony. And I have 4 cards here for people in person and maybe some more online. Okay, good. First up is John DiLorenzo. Please come up to the microphone, state your name and your residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. Good morning. My name is John DiLorenzo. My office address is 1300 Southwest 5th Avenue. I'm a lawyer and have been a litigator for 41 years now.
Wow.
I'm a partner at Davis Wright Tremaine, and my team, we've had some experience with Clackamas County. My team recently recovered the largest jury verdict in Oregon history on behalf of timber counties, of which you are one, and that case is proceeding in the appellate courts, and since you're a large beneficiary, we hope that case will resolve well for all of us. But a portion of my practice has been devoted to representing citizens and ratepayers in matters with their governments when they believed that violations of the city or county or district charters have taken place. Most recently, we represented water ratepayers against the city of Portland and were able to recover approximately $12 million from the general fund to the water fund as reimbursement for spending that had nothing to do with water service. I am today representing David Hoover, Thomas Riley, and other garbage customers in Clackamas County who have a bone to pick with Metro. They believe that Metro has violated its charter, which provides that Metro may charge no more than the actual cost of provision of a service. Metro accepts both, from its haulers, accepts both dry waste and wet waste. Wet waste is everything that goes into a garbage bin. If it goes in the bin, whether it's dry or wet, it's called wet waste. If it goes into the truck, it goes into a landfill, and there is no recovery from that waste. Dry waste, on the other hand, is like construction debris. You know, when you have the big drop boxes, when people are having construction projects, those need to be recovered. And Metro spends money recovering all of that. Metro's cost of recovery of that waste is much higher than the wet waste, yet it charges the same fee for all garbage. which in our view means Metro is charging garbage customers more than the actual cost of providing their service to subsidize construction contractors. That's what the lawsuit's all about. Now, Metro disagrees with that. But we can't get to first base because Metro has advocated that ratepayers have no standing to even question what Metro is doing in court unless they can prove that the result from the court will actually have an
Continue,
impact
please.
on them. Madam
Continue,
Chair,
please.
may I have just a few more,
Yes,
just a
please,
couple
I
more
want you
minutes?
to continue and explain what the action we're taking today is.
Right. So they cannot prove that even if they get their result in court, that a Metro reduction of its tip fee will ultimately flow to them because of the way you set rates. You take that tip fee, you take it into consideration of everything else, you then maybe don't increase their fees, or maybe you do anyway because there's other costs, and there's no way they can prove that. What this ordinance will do is make absolutely certain that if a court orders Metro to reduce its tip fee because it's violating its charter, that that reduction will inure directly to the benefit of the garbage customer at the curb. Now, I have to tell you that I am flabbergasted that a government like Metro would take a position that it cannot be held accountable to its charter by its citizens. This ordinance will fix that. But beyond that, the ordinance is something that most ratepayers would expect of county government anyway, that if costs go down, their costs should go down too. I urge you to adopt the ordinance because it will provide ratepayers an opportunity to have the court address this issue, and because it's otherwise a good idea. You know, Clackamas County has never lowered garbage rates in response to a Metro fee decrease. If Metro is ordered to do so by a court to lower its rates, even for a while, that would be a refreshing and a welcome development. So thank you, Madam Chair. I know I overstayed my welcome by a minute or two, but I'm available to answer any questions. If you
Yeah, we'll have probably some questions for you. So what the action before us today simply states that if, and it's a big if, Metro is ordered by court to lower its rates, then this board does the same in that it lowers its rates to its ratepayers in turn. And my philosophy on this is not Metro's money. This is not the county's money. This is not the board's money. This money belongs to our ratepayers. And I've always put ratepayers and taxpayers at the top of the totem pole whenever I consider any decision, any fiscal decision trying to move forward. So we have some folks who want to speak. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, just not really a point of order, but a question, I guess, and that is that I do have some questions, but I don't know if this part of the hearing is the right place, but I would like to be able to.
I think it's okay.
Yeah, I would like to be able, not necessarily right now, but I'd like to be able to call up if I need to and maybe ask Mr. DiLorenzo a question afterwards.
Sure.
After I've heard all the testimony. But I do have some questions, but I want to hold them for later.
Yeah, okay, but if any commissioner has a question here, but maybe somebody else is thinking about the question that's listening, so I would go ahead and encourage anybody here to ask questions of John DiLorenzo. Christina, is there anybody? Nobody online yet. Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. DiLorenzo. Please stay. Somebody else might have a question for you. Up next is
Thank you.
Yvonne Lazarus. Please come forward. State your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yvonne Lazarus, Milwaukee.
Please speak up.
Pardon?
Please speak up.
Okay. Now?
There you go.
Okay. I'm here to talk about Metro and this new sanitation that they want to put in over off of Jennifer Street. I don't want it. I have to be honest, I don't trust Metro about anything. We don't need it.
Just a minute, you're talking about the transfer station being relocated on Jennifer Street.
Yes, that's what
Metro
I'm
South.
talking
I
about.
just want to make sure, yeah.
Okay? And it says here, the information I got was that it's 3 tax lots, 26 acres, and it's 4.6 miles from the existing transfer station. Okay. Also, there were words that I don't know, so I'm going to ask you. I don't know what a tipping fee is, but what I heard this gentleman just say, our customers are being overcharged. And if that's happening, I don't want that. There has to be, that's wrong. So I'm asking you right now to explain to me or give me a little bit of an answer. What is the tipping fee and why would we be overcharged?
I'm going to have somebody else answer that question, but you have 1:25 left. If you'd
Oh.
like to say something further.
Okay, I couldn't hear you, Tootie, I'm sorry.
You have more time left. I will have somebody answer that. You
Oh.
have more time on the clock. Please continue.
Okay, well, I'm done, that's it.
Oh.
I wanted, if you guys can do something, please do it. It's wrong. If I found out that I was paying more for my garbage than I should be, I would be madder than Hades.
Thank you, Ms. Lazarus. Dan, do you want to give it a stab, or should we have Mr. DiLorenzo?
I can answer it just briefly.
Thank you.
Essentially, the tipping fee is the cost to deposit materials at a transfer station.
And that is for our commercial haulers.
Correct.
But our
Correct.
commercial haulers pick up at curbside, correct?
Correct.
And then those costs are naturally passed on to our ratepayers.
Correct.
Got it. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lazarus. Up next is Elvis Clark. Elvis Clark, you're up next. Please come up, state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
I think it's a mistake that
Do you want to testify later?
yes, I was wanting to comment in the public comment period, not this.
This is the public comment period on the Metro.
Right, I wanted the general.
Okay, you know what? Why don't I'll put you in the other pile. How's that?
That's fine.
Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you.
Up next, Les Poole. Please come up, state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Les Poole. I live here in Clackamas County. That's our address. It seems to me that Metro has an incredible cultural problem and a disconnect. And with regards to what we're seeing today, Metro certainly has a trust problem, and this is a glaring example of that. I think back to so many issues that are connected to how this is going. It isn't just whether or not we're here to talk about changing language to encourage Metro to do the right thing. There's something deeper here, and that is that Metro is completely out of touch. They've demonstrated that over and over. Currently, they're contemplating $40, $60, $80, $120 million to relocate the transfer center. And here we are today hearing that Metro literally is refusing to do the right thing. And Mr. DiLorenzo, who said it well, has been a great advocate for ratepayers and for the public for years. I've never met him, but I'm very familiar with him and his work. And it was only a matter of time before he and others got to a point where they would be addressing how Metro does business. The I like to call it a quasi-rate increase, and I submitted some testimony yesterday, and I call it a rate increase because, in a way, that's what it's been all along. We've been paying a rate increase, or we've been overcharged, and I'd like someone from Metro to come down here next week and convince us otherwise. I don't see anyone from Metro here, of course, because their position is indefensible. So I do support making this change, and I want to reiterate that we are supposed to be Metro's regional partner. Metro has done so many things to discourage that I've lost track. So please move forward with every effort you can to bring justice to this. And unlike so many issues, this affects everyone. We don't have a special group or a certain race of people or folks in Gladstone or folks in Oregon City or some other place that are adversely affected by this. We all are. So let's move forward. Let's move forward and send a message to Metro. Once again, I accidentally got done in 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. It's always nice, right? Christina, do we have anybody on Zoom who would like to testify on the Metro issue?
We do. We have a couple people that have registered. We're going to start, excuse me if I can catch my voice, start out with Eric Fruits. Eric, go ahead and unmute yourself, state your name and where you're located, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Chair Smith and Commissioners, I am Eric Fruits. I'm Vice President of Research at Cascade Policy Institute. Cascade is a nonpartisan 501c3 nonprofit research and education organization. We do not solicit or accept funding from any government or public agency. The proposed ordinance before you today would amend Chapter 10.03 of the County Code. The concept is simple. If Metro reduces its tip fee, Clackamas County residents get the benefit of that reduction in the form of lower garbage rates. That's it. The reduction is accomplished either through a decrease in the residential garbage rates or as a direct offset to unrelated costs that would otherwise been passed on to them. It's a very simple concept. If costs go down, consumers should get the benefit of that cost reduction. We see this happen everywhere. When the cost of milk goes down, you pay less for milk, for cheese, for ice cream. When the cost of oil goes down, you pay less for gas. When interest rates go down, you can refinance at a lower rate. This is normal in a free market. Nevertheless, opponents of this ordinance act as if this is the craziest idea in the world. Why would we ever reduce garbage rates? The short answer is because consumers, your voters, expect and deserve to experience the benefits of those lower costs. Looking through the meeting packet, I see some discussion of a concept known as rate smoothing. The funny thing about smoothing, have you ever noticed that we only smooth up but not down? Now, some of you might be too young to remember the world before airline deregulation. In that world, prices were set by the Federal Civil Aeronautics Board, and the prices were sky high, about double what we pay today for airfares. Airlines love those high and stable prices. When Congress was debating airline deregulation, those airlines said the federal price fixing was necessary to ensure price stability. And the funny thing again, they wanted stable high prices, not stable low prices. Since then, when I hear terms like smoothing or price stability, I know that's just a code for ever increasing prices. So please, commissioners, don't fall into the smoothing trap. In other areas, politically, this ordinance should be a no-brainer. If this ordinance passes and Metro reduces its tip fees, you can post a note on every bill with the new lower rates that says something like, new lower garbage rates brought to you by your Clackamas County Commission. None of your constituents are going to scratch their head and say, oh, gee, I really wish the county made me pay more. They won't. Commissioners, this is your chance to shine. Approve this ordinance and bring your residents the hope of lower garbage rates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fruits, for being informative as well as entertaining. Who's up next?
We have Lisa S. Lisa, go ahead and unmute yourself, state your name and area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Lisa. I live on Glen Eagles Road in Clackamas County, so I appreciate the forum. I really do not have much to add. I think Mr. Poole and Mr. Fruits and Mr. DiLorenzo has explained my position well, so I am going to cut this short. I think it is imperative that the county commissioners make the right choice, especially during these times when some people are struggling, that the ratepayer gets the benefit of the reduction of the tipping charge. So I will just state that, and I appreciate the forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Christine, anything else?
That is it for the Metro.
Commissioner Schrader, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just curious about Cascade Policy Institute. They're nonpartisan, they're not affiliated with the Libertarian Party?
No.
Okay, just wanted to
Like you
check on that.
stated, they are from what I hear, they're totally
Okay.
a 501c3, private funds.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to clarify, making sure that it really is nonpartisan. Because libertarianism is a party, or there is a libertarian party, but they are
Well, I don't
not.
know. I don't know what his political registration is. He didn't say. The members of it, I don't know what party they are.
Yeah, that's what, I'm just trying to clarify.
Well, I mean,
Evidently-
they probably have private registrations just like anybody else has, right? I would guess.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, that's the end of the list. I will close the public hearing and ask if there is any further discussion. Can I have a
Yes.
motion?
Actually, I have my light on, Chair.
You know, Paul, I missed that. Pardon me. Go ahead.
Yeah, so, I actually have a lot of questions, but I don't know where to begin here because I was actually enticed a little bit by some of the comments, and so it really begs another question. Could someone tell me, let's say the tipping fee changes by $1, whether it's up or down, what does that really amount to per household?
Well, that's a question out of the blue. Is Evan on there at all?
He is.
Yes, I am. But I would like to ask if Rick Winterhalter could be brought in to address that question about the connection. I can tell you if he should be there. While he's brought in, disposal is about 20% of our fee. And so you could imagine, like, for example, if there were a 10% reduction in disposal costs, that would be basically equivalent to 2% of our overall costs. The actual dollar to then cents translation, Rick, do you have a guess at that?
Oh, Rick, you're on
muted,
mute.
Rick.
Yes, of course. Good morning, Commissioners. A $10 change, Commissioner Savas, a $10 change in the tip fee results in about a 50-cent reduction at the curb, roughly speaking, the way we have.
Okay, so if I'm doing the math correctly, then $1 change would be basically about a nickel.
Just about.
Okay, so we're talking about a nickel. A nickel a month, or is that what we're hearing?
Yeah, nickel a month.
Okay.
So
All right, so, yeah, so that kind of gives me the context. So I just, in my prior elected roles on utilities, we had, that's not the best example, because it's kind of a utility in a way, but it's a franchise. So there's another angle of this. So I just want to beg your indulgence in this conversation. So whether it is, let's say WES, one of our agencies, or even frankly our property tax, we don't spend every penny, right? I mean, we have carryover, and we manage that, and we happen to charge at WES, we set the rates, and we don't vary the rates. We try to, I'm going to use smoothing again. I'm not afraid to use that. You kind of call it rate stabilization, whatever you may be. But in general, in our world that we live in, unfortunately, the trend of rates or cost are on the incline. So I would anticipate that a lot of energy going towards, or discussion seems to be on the reductions, but in reality, it seems to me that under this particular proposal that we would probably be faced with a higher frequency of increases than we would see a frequency of decreases. And so because of that, in the utility world, you do that averaging. And if you're responsible as a government, whoever the governing body is, you manage that that carryover. Let's just say that you didn't use up every penny of every ratepayer that paid in, and then you carried those dollars over into the utility that the ratepayers own, and you pass that savings on in the years ahead, and that really flattens that rate increase or potential rate increase as years go ahead. So that's the principle. If at a utility, we were to spend a lot of staff time, I think I used the $15,000 an hour example here. I don't know if that's a good number. I'm just sake of argument. It's something I calculated a long time ago with staffing and preparation for the meetings and so on. But my concern about this is that a lot of staff time could go in something that's a carryover. So if we're going to take the position, let's just say, that we should give every nickel back, then we should probably give every nickel back in every activity we take place in, right?
Okay, I'll do that.
Well, hang on.
I'll do it. I don't have a problem with that.
So we have carryover in our budget, in our general fund. We've got carryover in all of our budgets, and we have carryover in WES and so forth. If the strategy is to, or the goal to the citizens is to return all those dollars and then have to raise the rates accordingly the following year, as, again, everything's going up, unfortunately. That's an unfortunate reality. I think that's something we ought to be kind of mindful of and calculate here. So the question I have, one of my questions is, and one was answered, how would, under this new ordinance, technically a ratepayer have standing for a claim where they don't have standing today? John? Good?
Madam Chair, may I address that question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Di Lorenzo, would you please address the nickel issue?
Thank you. I'm just trying to keep with
the question
protocol.
at hand, frankly.
John Di Lorenzo here. I'll address them in reverse order. First of all, the court ruled that the two ratepayers did not have standing because, according to the MT&T gaming case, which is a Court of Appeals case, they must show first to get into court that whatever relief they are requesting of the court will benefit them financially. The court said, let's say I reduce Metro's tipping fee. Let's say I agree with you that Metro's violating its charter. There's no guarantee that the ratepayers will ever see that benefit because of the way rates are set. Therefore, there is no standing. What this ordinance will do is it will say if the court lowers tipping fees at Metro, the ratepayers will see that dollar for dollar, at least for a while, which then gives them standing, Commissioner, which then allows them to get to the merits of the case, which is whether or not Metro has violated the charter. While I'm here, let me also address the nickel issue, because I think that's a really interesting issue. It doesn't sound like much, a nickel. But then a theater chain that overcharges hundreds of thousands of customers a nickel or 20 cents for theater tickets doesn't sound like a lot on a micro level either, but on a macro level, it's a huge theft. Should it be ignored because it's just a nickel? Even if it is a slight amount, we believe that overcharging ratepayers is wrong, and there should be a remedy.
Yeah, so if I could follow, so John, I mean, I believe, so I'm just want to make it just clear on the record here that I was in favor of moving this forward today to a hearing, so I don't want anyone to mischaracterize my objectivity in here and play devil's advocate, and so asking these questions. I'm truly still trying to understand this, and I think our staff tried to answer my questions along the way, and this has already been educational and helpful. So, I think you explained to me now how there will be standing, and that I'm good there. So have we? Well, this is probably not a question for you. Maybe look at the third one. What does it? Okay, so am I correct in and I think people need to know this too. So we have Metro, we have the county that's the franchisor, so to speak, okay? And then we have the haulers, who are the franchisees. And then we have the ratepayers who pay the haulers, or the waste management, whoever it may be. So do we know that if we take all of these steps, okay, and we reduce those rates, are the haulers mandated somehow through our franchise agreements to lower that rate, to reduce their cost to each household by a nickel?
Please answer.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Savas, first of all, Commissioner, I always enjoy the banter with you, and so I don't take any of your comments personally. I have great respect for you, and it's very enjoyable to have this exchange. Secondly, I believe this ordinance would mandate that, and that would be part of your licensing. You license the haulers. You determine what the hauler's rate of return is on their investment. You regulate them almost like a utility. You can determine what the actual garbage rate is, and you can make sure that the customer has the benefit of that ultimate Metro tip fee reduction. So yes, I think you can do that.
Okay. My concern, John, and maybe our staff could address this too, and this is not a question for you, but I just want to if you have a comment, I'd like to get your response. My concern is that, at what point, let's just say it's a half a cent. Let's say you're looking at a tipping fee change and it results in a half a penny. Is it worth the effort of diminishing return of public expense, both at Metro, at the county? At what point do you feel it's worthwhile to chase a half a cent or whatever the number is? I mean, to me, there ought to be some kind of a reasonableness in all of this, right? And that's where I'm kind of getting at.
Right. Madam Chair and
Yes.
Commissioner Savas, I think administrative costs are worth increasing public confidence. And if the public sees that Metro has had to reduce its rates and that the county has honored that by passing along a rate reduction, no matter how small, to the individual customers at the curb, I think that will go a long way to enhance trust in our Clackamas County government. So I do think it's worth it.
Okay? Because it has occurred to me, this is more commentary, it has occurred to me that through all of this, that we really haven't done, the county commissioners have not really rolled up our sleeves and looked at the books and the finances of all these transactions of the years of evaluating whether the rate goes up or down and where the dollars go to assure that. So I feel that that's incumbent upon us to step up our game in light of what's been put out there in front of us. So that's all I have for Mr. DiLorenzo, I believe.
Okay. And Paul, you can you can always come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have some more people who want to make a comment, and you can come back if you think of something else. Christina, there's a red light on.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Fisher.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Smith. Still just a little bit confused. So, Dan, you can help me.
hope so.
Hopefully. So, how I understand it, we go through a rate review process and kind of everything gets thrown into mix as fuel costs and tipping fees, and it all gets put together, and we have a whole group of input of different interests that come up with and decide what the fees are. Is that, am I
That
understanding?
process goes through our Solid Waste Commission, that is
Yeah,
correct.
the Solid Waste Commission. So couldn't we decide, don't we have the autonomy right now and discretion to decide to lower rates based on less costs if Metro lowers its tipping fee?
That would be incorporated into that assessment.
So
And that
we-
would-
yeah.
that would be a decision that we have.
So we have the discretion and the authority, and would we do that? Have we done that?
We have not done it for, I don't believe, Eben or Rick, you can correct me on this, but I don't believe we've done a reduction. We've done a rate flattening. We kept rates low with increased cost in certain years. We have in other districts reduced rates, though. So, for example, like our lighting district, things of that nature. We have done that in the past.
So our lighting districts have reduced costs?
They have,
Or
correct.
have reduced the rate when costs or whatever other factors have been reduced?
When there's forecasting to facilitate that there's sufficient money to cover costs, we have actually actively, in this budget this year, you will see a proposed rate reduction for the lighting district.
Okay, yeah, continue.
Where I'm confused is that if we have the authority to do this, as a local jurisdiction, why would we want to create an ordinance that limits our discretion? What would be the public policy rationale for that?
I guess I want to make something very, very clear. And maybe DeLorenzo wants to come and speak to this too, but the first version of the ordinance that was proposed would eliminate all that ability, all the ability from this board to adjust rates based on any reduction from Metro. The revision, as proposed, limits that scope of impact to your ability to only if a court case determines it, if that makes sense. So it really reduces that scope of that influence and the impact on the board's ability to adjust that rate. And I'm not sure if that's answering your question, but fundamentally, you talk about it's good public policy. That simple change alone, I think, is sizable because it does allow the board additional ability to look at the rates in its totality, and it limits the scope of that impact to only if a court action dictates a reduction.
Okay.
So when we came to you with version 1, that wasn't the case. The case was any dollar that gets reduced, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm getting this wrong, but any dollar that's reduced automatically gets transferred under any set of circumstances. And this revision limits that scope to the court, like an official court action. And so when you looked at the first version, we had some concerns about that because it really limited the ability from this board to assess all those financial impacts, be them increase in costs, reduction in costs, and come back to our board and possibly, as Commissioner Salas has said, hey, you know what? I've got increases over here and reductions over here. Let's hold the rate flat because we have the ability to do that with these cost savings. You wouldn't have been afforded that anymore. So basically that control would have left. And it may have resulted in rate increases because of other increasing costs.
Okay. So the Solid Waste Commission, when we first had our policy session, did not support this. And now, are they neutral or do they have concerns?
The recommendation that came from the Solid Waste Commission is to honor the processes currently in place.
Still?
Pardon me?
Still, even after the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain that to me, what their reasoning is for that?
Eben, would you be able to explain that a little bit? You were, I think, a participant in that discussion. Or Rick?
Sure. Yeah, happy to do that. And just to be clear, the Solid Waste Commission meeting was a review of the amended, of the revised amendment. So there was not a need necessarily to go back to the Solid Waste Commission a second time. They saw the version that you're looking at today. Their consensus essentially was that the code currently provides the board with authority and discretion, full authority and discretion to increase or decrease fees and pass on reductions or increase costs, that the existing fee review process is fairly extensive, and per code, it does consider and pass on the benefits of reductions in costs to customers. And I think if I could just elaborate a little bit there, our process definitely respects the need to offer, and our imperative really, to offer the best value to our ratepayers. And so anytime in the past when Metro has reduced its rates, that has definitely been taken into consideration. If there was not an immediate pass-through of that reduction, it would primarily be because other costs increased. Remember that disposal is just 20% of the overall cost. So there's other factors that would go into any given annual rate review process, and that makes things a little more nuanced and complicated.
Okay, so I'm still looking for a public policy rationale for this ordinance that benefits the Clackamas County and the people of Clackamas County.
Well, I think I might take a stab at that, Commissioner Fisher. I think on a court order, which I assume would be a very lengthy court case, that a judge would be evaluating costs of doing business, and everything else would order a Metro to lower their rates, which I would consider to be extraordinary. I probably won't see it in my lifetime, but let's say it happened. For this board to pass on those rate reductions to the ratepayers is the right thing to do. That's why it's good public policy. It's because it's the right thing to do. And I will remind this board once again that it is not our money, it is not the county's money, and it is not Metro's money, because none of us would exist or even sit at this dais if it hadn't been for the generous tax-paying people of Clackamas County. That's why it's good public policy.
Yeah, so.
And
Chair-
secondly, I'm not done.
Oh, okay,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Secondly, Mr. Dan,
My apologies.
yes, thank you for paying attention.
I'm just trying
Let's
to,
say we get a court order, let's say we get a court order that lowers the tipping fee rate. And let's say down the line costs go up, we still have the ability to raise costs, correct?
that is correct.
All right, so this isn't as black and white as I think the opponents would like to make it out to be. This is very good public policy that we have an opportunity to really support our people in a time, and at least make them feel good in a time when we have been under 3 natural disasters. First, with COVID, people have lost their jobs and businesses. Secondly, on the wildfires, when half of our county was evacuated, and those people still haven't recovered. And by the way, I was one of those people who was evacuated from my home for almost a month. And then the ice storm, where we're still recovering on. This is goodwill. This is for the greater good of our Clackamas County residents, and that's why we do this. I see Commissioner Savas has his light on.
Oh, Chair Smith, I
Beautiful.
have a question. Man, it's not for you, but I want to make sure I understand this. It is our current policy within Clackamas County and our rate setting to pass on rate reductions when feasible. Is that what I heard from all of that? And maybe that's a question for Eben.
I'll have Evan truth check my statement, but you said when feasible.
Yeah,
Correct.
we do have that policy. I just
Yeah,
want to
you
make sure that Clackamas County, I have a real concern of
Yep.
government overreach. It's something that we all have to stop against.
You have the ability, a recommendation comes forward from the Solid Waste Commission. Does that mean you have to take that recommendation? No, it does not. But if those factors suggest there is no cost increase and there is a cost decrease, the board has the ability to lower that rate.
And could this board, instead of doing an ordinance, could this board institute a policy that basically codifies that? And would that meet the interests of the litigation perspective?
The board has the ability to adopt a policy. I'm not sure if it would set a precedent to create standing in the court case that Mr. Di Lorenzo was discussing with you previously. I wouldn't be able to answer that. I'm not an attorney at
Yeah.
law. Yes, Evan.
Aside from our code, we also do have administrative rules. So that's another place where a policy like that could be reflected. Just to be clear, we've not looked at those in any way with respect to this ordinance. That's the other place where we have policies that impact franchise administration.
Yeah, so that's helpful. Thank you, Chair Smith. I just wanted to
When
clarify
was the
what our
last time
policy is.
that the Board of County Commissioners lowered rates? Do you know?
As it relates to this particular charge?
Yes.
I think within the policy session materials, it elevates that. It does, I have to find it exactly. Evan, do you have that off the top of your head? But there's never been
Not since I've been here at the county. Rick, do you know?
There were 2 times in the past in mid-2000s, Madam Chair,
But Rick, just to clarify, there were 2 points in time where rates were lowered?
where we kept our rates flat.
Flat, okay.
When rates were lowered, as you described earlier.
Yeah,
So
correct.
we kept them flat, so we didn't lower them necessarily. I only remember rate increases. I have never seen a rate reduction regarding this ever since Metro has taken over. If Metro is overcharging us, the court may not be able to order a rate reduction unless we change this ordinance. See, that's the issue, isn't it? If we don't make this change, the court will never order a rate reduction, even though Metro continues to overcharge people. And I get a rate increase every year on my curbside garbage service. I don't know about you folks. Every single year from the private providers, they have to pass that rate increase on. And so I never see it. Commissioner Savas, you have your hand up.
Yes, great discussion, and I too enjoy the dialogue and have great respect for Mr. DiLorenzo, and this is really, I think this conversation we're having is really the good public policy of deliberating and discussing it openly and transparently, so this is good government business, and it's the public benefits from exposing and bringing these things out in the open. So I like the revision, but I just want to clarify. So apparently the Rate Commission met twice then, because when we talked about it the last time in a work session, we heard that the Rate Commission recommended at least on the resolution as written before, that they didn't.
No, there was a revision between the time that the board had met.
Okay.
And we took the revision that Mr. DiLorenzo brought forward, and the revision that's in your packet today, we brought that text.
And I'm okay with those changes, but it sounds like, but when we did meet in the policy session the first time on this, we were told that the Rate Commission recommended no. It was in the packet. So they met prior to and after then, because I think that was the response to Commissioner Fisher. So it sounds like they met twice. Once to look at the first version, and then once to look at the second version, because I recall specifically that in the policy session, the Rate Commission advised against that. And what I was looking at, I took that as that being the resolution prior to the change, or the language change. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm hearing the sequence correctly.
Yeah, I'm interested in that as well. I would like that clarification.
Commissioner Savas, the Solid Waste Commission met only once, and the ordinance version that they looked at was the revised version. It was revised after the issues conversation that was held with you, but before the Solid Waste Commission meeting and then before the policy session that you had.
Okay, but I thought I recalled at the policy session that the Rate Commission's advice was referenced in the policy session. So it's either one way or another. So if you're saying it was afterwards, at the policy session, it was prior to.
The Solid Waste Commission's recommendation is a recommendation about the revised amendment.
Okay.
That was held at the policy session. If you recall, we had an issues discussion. Then we had a policy session, and the policy session was your direction to us to go get the
issues policy. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, I get it now. Light went off.
Yeah. So that's.
So my response back to to Commissioner Fisher's other question was, how is this essentially in the best interest of the public or the constituents? I would say that to Mr. DiLorenzo's argument, it's that the citizens would have standing if they feel that they were wrong, essentially. Whereas, as it sits today, they don't have, no citizen has any standing. So this gives them standing. So I'm, frankly, with all this information, I think I'm more comfortable than I was when I walked in here.
Oh, maybe I will say something.
Is there any further comment?
Chair, maybe I will say a word. if I
Commissioner
might.
Schrader, absolutely.
That's how I'm understanding this. It isn't that we aren't raising, that we have a process whereby we keep the rates as stable as we can for the benefit of the public. And we work with the franchises, and we do all of that. We've been doing a good job for all the years I've been here. And I remember the years where we stabilized the rates. I think the real issue is if Metro is not a politically correct term, but doing something hinky with, in terms of the differences in wet waste and dry waste and subsidizing one over the other. That's what the issue is. And my understanding of this would give an opportunity for standing at a court level and moving it into litigation. I guess my question to staff, it wouldn't be fundamentally changing any way that we are already setting the rates, other than it would give an opportunity to change one of those one of those touch points that we use when we consider rates. That's kind of how I'm seeing this. And it's really kind of whether or not we're kind of really saying, Metro, you need to true this up.
The first version would have.
Is it fundamentally changing any of our processes? So what I want clarity on is it doesn't necessarily mean, based on those other touch points, that we may see a lowering of rates. This is a true up with the regional government, saying, hey, it gives the possibility of a reduction in rates, I guess is what I'm asking.
From staff's review,
Yeah.
council's review, the first version would have limited your ability.
Okay.
It would have mandated
All right.
any reduction for Metro would have had to been gone back in a timely fashion.
Right.
The revisions, the packet before you today, are solely built around the nuances of a court action taking place and a court acting to have
That's
Metro
what I keep
reduce the
saying.
rates.
Yeah.
It still affords you the ability, through our general rate-making process on an annual basis, to still assess any just operational changes in cost.
Right.
So you still have that ability. You still have that. I don't know, Eben, would you like to expand on
Yeah.
that, or is that good?
Yeah, Dan, if it's okay with you, I'd like to offer a little more clarification. So
Okay,
the ordinance
that'd be
does speak, but Dan is referring to a situation where a court is ordering Metro to make a reduction. And the ordinance does speak to a situation in which Metro would make a reduction that's not by a court order. The difference is that in that second situation, the ordinance would allow us to basically incorporate that reduction into our regular process.
Right,
We
that's
would
okay.
be sure that that benefit does inure to our ratepayers, which I'll say we already do that. And then, but it does allow us to consider other costs that are increasing at the same time and use the benefit of a Metro reduction to offset other increases, which means still passing value on to ratepayers. So those are the two different scenarios and how the revised amendment treats them slightly differently.
Okay, that's perfectly clear now. Thank you for
Are
that
you okay?
clarification.
Christina, there's a red light on.
Commissioner Fisher has her hand
Commissioner
raised.
Fisher, and I think there's somebody still trying to get on that there's been a technical glitch. So we'll allow it because it's always been in the past when people have had trouble getting in, we've gone back to them, allow them. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Smith. So trying to fill in the blanks for myself, I reached out to one of our haulers, Andy Cahoot, to try to explain this to me. I just want to read what he wrote because I want to get this on the record. He said, "We support the Solid Waste Commission in their argument against this proposal. There are many costs that go into solid waste rates. Only one is Metro tip fees. There is a process that already exists to update rates on new costs. The tip fee has no different treatment than fuel costs, which go up and down daily. Their proposal would put undue pressure on one component of the rate and may not accurately represent the total cost of the system going forward. All cost savings or increases must be analyzed so both the ratepayer and the service providers have a fair and uniform system."
And who
So-
was that, Commissioner Fisher?
That's Andy Cahoot. So I didn't understand what he was talking about, so I called him on the way here. And the question that I have, so there's wet waste, there's dry waste, there's residential waste, there's commercial waste, and my understanding is that Metro is subsidizing commercial waste at the expense of ratepayers. So Evan, I'm looking at you, is that right?
That is the assertion.
Okay. Or, yeah. Evan can't see me, but I can sure see him.
Yeah, Eben, she's looking at you right now, so.
Yeah,
And so I guess for us, kind of the question is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? And I can see both sides. I'm all about the people, the people at the end of every decision, but also commercial activity, our businesses, how that impacts being in the middle of a pandemic, all of those economic forces. So I have a concern about changing government authority and discretion to look at all those factors, but at the same time, I have a serious problem with Metro not adhering to its charter, and I have a serious concern over government overreach. So overall, so we have this today. What's the process? If we support this today, then what's the next step?
It'd be scheduled for a second reading, which I can let Nate expand on that.
Do we get to discuss it then? Because
Same type of hearing, but public hearing, public.
Okay, because from a,
second
it's a
reading,
balancing
correct.
act. It's like government overreach, commercial activity, ratepayers versus, and I see all of it. It's not black and white in my mind at all when it looks at all the competing factors.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Savas, you're in the queue.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Commissioner Fisher shared from Mr. Cahoot, which is, thank you for that. I appreciate that. So get that the tipping fee rate is one component of the final rate that the resident receives in their bill. But the danger of expanding that argument to say, therefore, it shouldn't be passed on or it ought to be weighed in is really almost the same argument that Mr. or his clients are making, in that you shouldn't be blending or subsidizing. So one activity shouldn't subsidize the other. So we falling in the trap, the same trap, if you will, that activity should subsidize another activity. So I think is that a fair assessment?
You're asking me?
Yes, I am, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. Mr. Di Lorenzo, please come up.
I want to make sure I thoroughly understand this.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I really feel the
and,
responsibility to
Commissioner
understand this
Salas.
topic.
I want to point out that this is our allegation. Okay, no court has proven this yet. We allege that Metro is violating its charter because it treats wet waste and dry waste as discrete services, and it is overcharging residential customers to subsidize the construction industry. So we think that's why there's a violation of the charter. This ordinance that we are suggesting will allow us to get to first base so the court can make that determination. Is Metro violating its charter or not? Otherwise, we have what Metro's lawyers said during the court hearing, only our political remedies. Well, I'm taking them up on their suggestion. I'm coming to you, and I'm asking you for this ordinance that allows us to see. Now, either the court's going to decide that Metro's overcharging residential customers or not. If it's overcharging residential customers, the court hopefully will order Metro to reduce the tip fee, and per this ordinance would then give the residential customers the benefits of that. If the court finds that Metro isn't overcharging residential customers, then the status quo is preserved. So I'd like to suggest that you have nothing to risk by passing this ordinance. As the chair mentioned, it addresses the unlikely circumstance or the not always happening circumstance that a court will order Metro to do something. But it is sure going to go a long way to increase citizen confidence in this board and send a message that this board is interested in looking to the citizens first, and haulers and government and others second. Because as the chair pointed out, it's their money. And we should be protecting the expenditure of their money. Commissioner Savas, does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. And so I have a question for Eben, if I may, Chair. I think it's Eben.
Yeah, we have more people in the queue too, but go ahead.
Yeah, and that is, what component, as I'm understanding this, so you got the tipping fee component, the rate commission decides that. Chair Smith gave her example that in Molalla, or the Molalla area, you live outside the city, her rates go up every year. Mine have not gone up every year. So my question is Molalla one of the franchise, in the area that's served by Chair Smith, is that part of the franchise area that we control? Is one question. And the other one is that the rates that the franchisee passes on, are they only bound by a portion of what the rate commission and the county commission approve? So meaning, are there more elements to it that factor into the actual bill that the ratepayer actually gets at their home?
Okay. Well, thanks, Commissioner. The answer to your first question is that the county administers the franchise and collection system in unincorporated areas of the county. So for in the Malala area, it just depends on whether you're talking about city limits or not. Malala, approves fee changes within their.
Outside the city, outside the city.
That's Clackamas County's determination.
Yeah, I'm in unincorporated rural Clackamas County.
Okay,
So I would be under.
All right, so my second part of my question is that we don't set the rate that what the customer gets in their bill, right? We're only
do.
setting a component of it, or do we?
We determine the amount, we set the rate for the monthly fee.
Yep.
What we have less control over are the input costs, such as fuel and disposal, just, being two examples.
So, Evan, we could have a scenario that a court orders Metro to lower the fee. We take the action based on this ordinance today, and we lower the fee. But, gas prices could go to $5 a gallon. And that would be a legitimate increase to businesses. They could go up over there. But those are two different scenarios, correct? And I think those would be needed to be considered differently, correct?
Yes, Chair, those are two different cost centers. When we do our annual review once a year, all of the cost centers get included at the same time. Under this ordinance, it, certainly breaks out the disposal costs as a cost center that receives special separate treatment. And so, depending on the timing and the nature of Metro's reduction, that would influence whether or not it just gets incorporated into our regular review process, or we make a separate reduction that directly passes on to customers outside the regular review process.
Thank you. I'm going to switch because we've had somebody waiting in the queue for a very long time. He could not get in earlier because of a glitch and whatever. And so Christina, is he still there?
He is.
Okay, go ahead. Who is that?
Chair, I suggest you reopen the public hearing.
Oh, excuse me, reopen the public hearing on this issue.
Excellent. So it's Richard Burke. And if you can unmute yourself, state your name and your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, very well. Thank you, Commissioner. And let's see, how can I bring my video up?
So we don't allow you to have video, unfortunately.
Oh, no video. Okay, that's fine. That explains why I got this on the screen. Okay, my name is Richard Burke. I live in the Silverton area, but I have an office in the Metro's area of jurisdiction in Washington County, specifically in Tigard. I'm the secretary of the Libertarian Party of Oregon, PAC. I'm also former chair of the Oregon Government Ethics Committee, and I'm also former president of the Tualatin Valley Water District. What I wanted to say is this. The money is important, and I know you've had a discussion about how much money it is, whether it's significant, insignificant, how it could be impacted by other factors. What I'd like to point out is that the action you take is going to send signals, important signals, to the citizens of your county and the citizens of all of the people who live in the area that's governed by Metro. Clackamas County, by considering this ordinance, is showing a couple of things. First, your board is showing that it's paying attention. The second thing is that your board is showing that there is a principle involved regarding the money of its constituents, which is also very important. This is a signal that needs to be heard by Metro. This is a signal that needs to be heard by the county commissions of Washington and Multnomah counties. This is a signal that needs to be heard by municipal governments throughout the entire district. When I was president of the Tualatin Valley Water District, we also charged rates. We charged rates for water. And constituents were very mindful of very small changes in water rates. They were very concerned about it. If there were mistakes, they were watching it very closely. I think that your constituents will feel better about your commission if you go forward with this, showing that you believe they have standing to take a position on this issue. And that shows that you are protecting their interests. And that yes, the increase may be small now, or the amount of money may be relatively small now, but an issue could come up in the future where conditions are similar, where the amount could be much larger and much more impactful. and impactful for the people in the other counties that live in Metro 2. So I wanted to raise these issues largely because of Commissioner Fisher, who said that she wanted to have reasons why this was good public policy. And my friend, Mr. DiLoretto, I think has done an excellent job of pointing many of these things out. But I wanted to provide a perspective from someone who lives in a county that is in Metro, but is not Clackamas County, how this impacts all of us. And if you inspire the other boards to pay attention, perhaps if Metro does something similar in another county that would secondarily affect you, that they will pay attention to and protect the interests of all of us. That's what I had to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Christina, is there anybody else we've missed?
No, that was it.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing on this issue. Any other comments from commissioners? Dan?
I have a question, Chair. So I just want to understand, if we did not raise the rates every year, how come Chair Smith's bill went up every year? Based on the explanation that I heard. Someone please reconcile that. If we actually set the rate, then how come Tootie's bill goes up every year and we don't raise it every year?
Evan, do you have something you want to say?
Just that I very simply don't have an answer for that question, but we have not increased rates every year in unincorporated Clackamas County. So, Rick, does that raise anything for you?
No, and Commissioner Smith and commissioners, we have, with the exception of the 2 times mentioned in the report where we held fees flat, I think Commissioner Smith is correct, Chair Smith is correct, that we have increased fees most years because of all of the pressures from increasing costs that the collectors have to take on. So we have, and I think that's all in all unincorporated areas. We've either.
And I wonder what the reasons for those increased costs are. Is it the natural part of doing business? Is it more government regulation? Is it more layers of paperwork? And maybe that's something we can explore later. I'm not going to put you on the spot to answer that question now, but maybe, you can look into that and figure that out. Any other further discussion? Commissioner Scholl, you ready for a motion?
I move we read the ordinance by title only.
Second.
Has been moved by Commissioner Scholl and seconded by Commissioner Savas. Is there any further discussion? Yes, we do. Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair Smith.
You betcha.
I'm going to support this today on the basis of I'm very concerned about government overreach, and I don't like the idea that people can't hold Metro accountable for its charter if they're violating their charter. That's the issue that I'm most concerned about. But in balance with that, I'm very concerned about autonomy and having us determine certain equity. I don't know if it's in the public interest to subsidize commercial waste. It might be. So I want to welcome before the second reading that our Solid Waste Commission or anybody else who has a perspective that would help me understand those issues to come forward, because at this point, I haven't received feedback about that. So, but
Well,
with that,
this,
I want us to move forward with this, and there'll be
Thank
another
you.
opportunity for people to weigh in.
Thank you, and I would totally agree with that. This meeting, this public hearing has been noticed, and I'm sure the Solid Waste Commission and anybody else with an interest could have showed up here today to make their case. I don't see them in the audience. I don't have any cards. They're not online. And I don't even know if we had any emails come in, Christina, this week on it. So the next hearing on this would be when, Gary?
It'll be on Thursday, April 15th, 2021, at the 10 a.m. business meeting.
Okay, so the second reading of this, we have a second hearing on this. We can do that. Seeing no more comments, Christina, would you please call the poll?
Of course. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye. The motion has passed 5-0. Thank you very much for everybody and your input. Yes.
Just to clarify, the motion was to read by title only, and so we still have more work to do on this item.
And what is that?
So Christina, would you assign a number and read the ordinance by title only, please?
I can, yes. The ordinance will be numbered 01-2021, an ordinance amending Clackamas County Code, Chapter 10.03, Solid Waste and Waste Management, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, any further discussion? Do the commissioners have any proposed changes or amendments to the draft ordinance at this time? The second reading will be Thursday, April 15th, as Gary said, 2021, at the board's regularly scheduled business meeting at 10 a.m. Gary, what's next?
All right, next, Commissioners, is a board discussion item. It is a board order on a request for use of either a utility vehicle or an all-terrain vehicle on public roads as an accommodation pursuant to the Americans with Disabilities Act and safety concerns. Nate Boderman from County Council will present.
Thank you. Good morning. The item this morning is to adopt an order and the associated findings of fact and law related to the request by an individual, Mr. John Anderson, to evaluate the use of a John Deere Gator and Yamaha all-terrain vehicle on public roads in the county as an accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act. As you'll probably recall, the board held a public hearing on this on February 3rd, 2021, to accept testimony and evidence in this matter. The board voted at that time to continue the hearing until March 3rd, 2021 for deliberation decision only. On March 3rd, the board reconvened for a public hearing, and at that time, the board voted 5-0 to deny that request for accommodation that was presented by Mr. Anderson. The order before you today will formalize the denial in this matter. What staff has done is drafted the order and included findings that support the decision, and of course, those are attached to the order as an exhibit. The process, just to be clear, is very similar to how what we do for land use hearings, in the sense that the board has made an oral decision, and what we're doing today is following up with the formal order and the findings in order to finalize that oral decision. So it's not so much a decision on the merits today as it is basically acknowledging that you agree with the form of the order and the findings that we presented. So certainly staff's recommendation that you adopt the order. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
And we had a public hearing on that previously. I'm just restating what you did, to
two
be
public
clear.
hearings.
We came back a second time, made our findings, had more discussion, and denied the request. Do any other commissioners have any kind of questions or comments at this time? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move we deny a request by John Anderson to evaluate the use of a John Deere Gator, Yamaha all-terrain vehicle, or other similar powered mobility device on county roads as an ADA accommodation.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Scholl has made a motion, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded that. Any further discussion on this? Christina, would you call the poll?
Of course. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, the motion has passed 5-0. Gary, what's up next?
Next is a consent agenda. However, Chair, would you like to take a quick recess?
Well, how much time? We have quite a long agenda today. Commissioners, what would you like to do? Do we want to take a 5-minute comfort break and return, or do you want to keep going?
Let's take a 5-minute break.
I think
Okay.
a 5-minute break is
We'll
fine.
be back in 5 minutes, and the people who are in the audience ready to testify, please stick around. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Oh, there we
that's a
go.
big one.
Okay, we are back.
Okay, we have returned from our 5-minute recess. Gary, what's up next?
Yes, next, Chair Smith, is the consent agenda. And Christina, will you please read the consent agenda by title only?
I will. First up is Health, Housing, and Human Services. Number 1, approval of an IGA Amendment Number 1 with the University of Wyoming, Wyoming Survey and Analysis Center. Amendment adds $21,500 for the maximum value of $216,500. No general funds are involved. Number 2, approval of Amendment Number 2 to the cooperation agreement with Corvallis Neighborhood Housing Services Incorporated, doing business as Dev Northwest, and the Community Development Division to provide additional community development block grant funds for the sanitary sewer systems development charges for housing project. This amendment would add $80,000 for the total value of $300,000, funded through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Community Development Block Grant. Number 3, approval for Amendment Number 1 to the Intergovernmental Grant Agreement with the State of Oregon Criminal Justice Commission for Mental Health Court Services, grant in the amount of $43,002.24. No matching funds and no general funds are involved. Under Department of Transportation and Development, approval of Amendment Number 2 to the Supplemental Project Agreement Number 31087 with the Oregon Department of Transportation for the Canby M.J. Lee Ferry Intelligence Transportation System Project. Total cost estimated at $770,365. With funds through the Ferry Boat Discretionary Program, 71.3%, and the road match at 28.7%. No general fund is involved. Approval of contract with Lida Excavating Incorporation for the D Street Improvements Project. Contract value is $3,459,488.50, which is budgeted in Development Agency Budget Fund number 30316. Under Business and Community Services, approval of Amendment Number 2 between Business and Community Services and Opus Architecture for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Concord property, Oak Lodge Library, and Gladstone Library Design and Permitting Services. And that's your consent agenda.
Thank you, Christina. Does any commissioner wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? May I have a motion?
Move we approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Commissioner Saffis has made a motion to approve. Commissioner Schrader has seconded that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Christina, please call the poll.
Yes, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye. The motion has been approved 5-0. The board will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District for the next consent agenda item.
Christina, will you please read the NCPRD consent agenda by title only?
Of course, we have one item. It's approval of Amendment Number 2 between Business and Community Services and Opus Architecture for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Concord property, Oak Lodge Library, and Gladstone Library Design and Permitting Services.
Thank you. Does any commissioner wish to remove any items? May I have a motion?
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved for the approval, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Christina, please call the poll.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, the motion has been approved. The board will adjourn as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting. Gary, what's next?
Next, we have wildfire updates. Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management, will present, and she is on Zoom.
She is. I just brought her in. There she is.
All right. Good. I think it's still morning. Good morning, Commissioners and Administrator Schmidt. Before I go over the wildland fires, I just want to mention a couple things that we have going on with our ice storm. We did have all of our meetings with FEMA, as I mentioned last week. So our cost, and this is still preliminary, but they took a look at everything. They took out the things that were not eligible. So the county had $14 million, and it is now 9.736 million, which is still well above our threshold of about 1.5 million. The state is sending up to the governor to have the request that will go on to FEMA. And the state request is around 26.9 million, just shy of that. So Clackamas County's portion of that is 36.2%. So that is pretty significant losses here at Clackamas County. I also want to let everyone know that if you recall when PGE was here and gave a presentation to the board, they mentioned giving $75,000 to some of our CBOs and nonprofit groups that were really active during the fires. Those decisions have been made, and I believe they've reached out to everyone now. So I'm going to let you know who has now received some of those fundings or will be receiving the funding. Clackamas County Meals on Wheels, Love Inc. of Clackamas County, Hope Food Pantry, helping other people to eat, Northwest Family Services, Bridging Cultures, and Love One are all going to be getting a part of that $75,000. All right, on to wildland fire recovery. So we do have a lot of road conditions that have been reported, and it's in the report. Just real quickly, we have Sawtell Road, who has active logging operations and showing some deterioration. Elk Prairie Road has some potholes forming at milepost 0.35. Family Camp Road also has active logging and potholes throughout. Butte Creek is active logging. The road is pumping and cracking at certain points. And so we're also watching that very closely as well. Shively and Hillockburn also have the same type of issues going on. For our housing, there's been a little bit of changes there. Our building residential is now up to 12, and electrical is now up to 42. Manufactured home replacement requests is 7, and plumbing is now went up to 15. So we still have, of course, ODOT and the contractor that is on site. We do have a field liaison working with them. They are going out and they're still toppling chimneys and still doing assessments on the properties. And hopefully for the private property, again, we hope to get that started very soon. And we are still providing information on the roadways for the county and what our priorities are there. And that is my update for this morning for wildland fire.
Thank you, Nancy Bush. Commissioner Savas, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to, maybe Nancy can comment or other staff, but I just wanted to let a few people know that, because I got a couple people asking or assuming that we had rejected any idea of waiving any of the permit fees for those who don't have any coverage or insurance. So as I understand it, Gary, we have a work session coming in which staff will be bringing us a proposal to actually relieve the permit fees for those who do not have insurance coverage. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's in 2 weeks, yes.
Just want to make sure that we know that. Nancy, do you have any input on that to add?
No, Commissioner, I don't. Dan Johnson and his staff have been working on that issue.
Okay, thank you.
Gary.
All right, we'll move on then to COVID-19 updates, which will be presented by Nancy, and she'll be joined by Philip Mason Joyner, the county's public health director. Go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Christina. So we'll make this short and sweet. So today we have the Clackamas County total cases at 14,304. We have 196 total deaths. Our death from last week has not increased. However, we have went up 545 cases since 3/23. Next slide, please. Again, this is just the graph. It shows since mid or early March where we have been and where we are now. As you can see, we have 284 cases this past week, up from 194. So we are seeing that trend up, and Philip will talk about that a little bit more later. Next slide, please. This is our hospital data, which has been very, very steady for the past several weeks. I will just say moving forward, we're not going to talk about how hospital capacity unless we start seeing some real changes there. So this will just be the last week for at least a while that we will talk about hospital capacity because it's been very steady for such a long time. Next slide. And here's our COVID patients here in Northwest Oregon hospitals. Again, you'll see that we do have a trend up there. We do have some dips. And of course, it makes sense as we have more COVID cases, we would have more hospitalizations, but it has not climbed dramatically at this point. Next slide, please. And Philip, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Nancy. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, as Nancy mentioned, case counts are increasing. We're seeing that. Clackamas County, we are still at moderate risk for the next week. But the increase is of concern as we've relaxed some of the restrictions or increased our activities with businesses and schools. Reopening is not unexpected. I also think a factor is, of course, fatigue, as this pandemic has gone on for quite a long time, and individuals with their own personal health behaviors, following those is a challenge to sustain that. We will find out next week what this means for Clackamas County. If case counts do not improve, it's likely that the state will put us in what they call a caution. That would begin next Friday. So that would be where we have another 2 weeks that we stay in this moderate risk level. And if case counts do not improve over the next 2 weeks, then there's a possibility of us moving backwards to the high risk level. Businesses would have to reduce their capacity from 50% that they're operating at right now to 25%. So really hoping that we have this 3-week window where we can follow the public health precautions and do what is possible to really help support our businesses and not have to do that. Next slide, please. The timeline for eligibility for individuals to receive the vaccine has accelerated yet again. I feel as though each week I'm letting you know that. So that's good news in that more folks are going to be able to have the opportunity to get the vaccine. On May 1st, every Oregonian age 16 and older will be eligible. Some of the small counties across the state have actually requested to be able to vaccinate folks even earlier. At Clackamas County, due to the limited supplies, we're not recommending that at this point. And Nancy and I worked with Chair Smith in the state around that. This Monday, with folks who are aged 45 to 64 with underlying health conditions being eligible, that was a large group of folks. The appointments we made available were filled in about 10 minutes. The Oregon Convention Center and the drive-through at the airport, those are currently booked right now fully until mid-April. And on this upcoming Monday, frontline workers, which is a very large group of people, will now become eligible too. So we certainly don't have an issue where schedules are not being used, filled, and we don't have that demand as some places in other parts of the state might. Next slide, please. This shows you on Monday who is eligible next. So as I mentioned, frontline workers, which is a very large group, grocery store workers, many others. Adults age 16 to 44, so younger folks with underlying health conditions, and then people living in a multi-generational household. So think grandparents that live with grandkids, that sort of thing. They'll be eligible, regardless of age. Next slide. We had locally a really successful past week of getting vaccine into arms. Last weekend, in partnership with Clackamas Fire District number 1, last Friday and Saturday, we had our first event at the Clackamas Town Center Mall at the parking garage. Over 3,500 doses administered. We also were up at Sandy High School, administering 1,000 doses up there. Yesterday alone, we were in Wilsonville with Walton Valley Fire. We were at Canby at the county fairgrounds, and we were at Malala High School. vaccinated 1,000 people at each of those events. So over 10,000 doses administered in the last 7 days. Very, very proud of all the staff and the partners to put these on. And we really have at this point depleted our inventory, so need more supplies coming in from manufacturing and from the state to be able to host more of these great events. And appreciate that we got some good media coverage on the great work that's happening. And a lot of just inspiring feedback from the community that we're so grateful for the opportunity to have vaccines in communities available. Scheduling, we will continue to share this each time we present because it's really, really important. It's at times a challenge to navigate. Our county website is where we're going to have our local vaccine opportunities. Typically, our goal is to have those available on Monday mornings for our local events. If you're concerned about being able to access the website and go through the technology to be able to book an appointment, we encourage you to call our call center where you can be placed on a wait list and get an appointment. That number is 503-655-8224. And then if you are able to go into Portland to get the vaccine, it's likely going to be the fastest option. You can get pre-registered for when you're eligible at getvaccinated.oregon.gov. You will then be notified when a scheduled appointment can be available for you. I'll also share that folks may have seen the national news yesterday around the Johnson & Johnson vaccine supplies, 15 million doses lost. It's very concerning. It really is going to impact our ability to do these regular schedule that we really wanted a scheduled out calendar, that there's some consistency that the community can rely on. But at this point, the vaccine supplies are still pretty limited. We won't be able to do, at least initially, the next couple of weeks, as many of these events as we were hoping to as a result of some of these supply chain issues. But as opportunities and supplies come our way, we will certainly promote and assure that folks have access to a variety of options to get the vaccine. The local pharmacies are receiving vaccines directly. They have their own scheduling system that's on our website as well. They're available throughout the week, so you really do have to just try and reach out to pharmacies to see if you can get an appointment. But they've more than doubled the amount of supplies coming to local pharmacies, and they are, in our county, we've heard from our pharmacists that they're pretty much at capacity right now. And I'll pause there. I know you have a very long meeting today, so I'm happy to come back next time to talk about guidance for fully vaccinated people, unless you'd like me to cover that now, Chair.
No, we need to move on, Philip.
Paul, you have a question or a comment? Let's be brief. We need to move on.
Yeah, I'll be brief. So, Philip, is the rise in the numbers, I asked this question last week, and just currently, is the rise in numbers still the youth population because of schools back in, or is it sports related? Is that still the cohort we're seeing this spike?
We are seeing it's a lot of younger folks, I would say in their 20s and 30s. That's younger.
Okay.
Really, connected to what's happening outside of school, outside of organized activities, including sports. So it's before school, after school. It's really those social gatherings, folks getting together and not following the public health precautions.
Okay, so you say it's still school related then?
It's connected.
Okay, so.
It's connected, but I wouldn't say that that's the source.
Okay, so then granted. So my concern, now I'm going to be a lot stronger about it this week than I was last week, my colleagues, and that is that if it's a result of the school activity and opening back up, which is directed by the governor, why would we be punishing the business sector and everyone else where we're not seeing the spike? If that's what's causing the spike in the first place, it's unfair. And I just think it's incumbent upon us to send some kind of a message to the governor or the state or the OHA or all the above to make that really clear.
I agree. I think maybe it's time that we consider that. Paul, maybe we'll consider that at issues next week. And we'll have the public health folks come in and Nancy Bush.
Yeah, I'd like,
I just totally 100% agree with you.
yeah, I think we should just, frankly, just start drafting a letter of that, and then, and for the board to review.
Thank
Chair.
you. I don't want to spend any more time on it now, but your point is well taken. Gary, are we finished with this portion today?
Yes, thank you, Nancy and Philip.
Okay, up next is public communication. Thank you all for waiting. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business which are properly the object of the board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature. As the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon Revised Statutes and County Code, testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public comment at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. However, we will not be reading them at the time of the business meetings due to time constraints. I have some cards here of people who have showed up in public. First up today is Elvis Clark. Please come forward, state your name and residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, Commissioners, and thank you for helping us testify today. I'm Elvis Clark, and I live in Milwaukee, Oregon. And so the issue I wanted the board to maybe take up was on the new Metro income tax and how it is administered. Right now, Metro is, if you go to their website, they're collaborating with the city of Portland to collect their new income tax, both personal and businesses, in Clackamas outside of the city of Portland jurisdiction. And I find this objectionable, as I think many others do in the Clackamas area. That's not part of this, which is the best part of Clackamas is outside of the city of Portland. But anyways, Metro is having the city of Portland, even today on April Fool's Day, city of Portland is starting to take registration of persons in Clackamas County outside of the city of Portland as a surrogate government operation for Metro in our Clackamas County. And I find this objectionable that we would have to eventually maybe turn over our tax returns and filings with the city of Portland, who's acting as an agent for the Metro government. And so I think this is an issue that the board should actually consider, very important to most of us. There may be some additional administrative costs to having a different process. I don't know that for sure, but I think it's more important for the taxpayers and outside of the city of Portland in our Clackamas County that we not be beholden to the city of Portland in as a jurisdiction in our area. So that's my main concern. In May 1st through May 30th, the Metro is taking comments on the administrative rules for their new income tax, which is for the homeless services. So that's something I would hope the commissioners, and if not, even better would be the board to address this, having the city of Portland have some kind of jurisdiction in the city, in our area of Clackamas County. And that's my main objection. And I think it's shared by many in Clackamas too, that even though there's a privacy issue that Metro says that the data will be private, but going through City of Portland and their Department of Revenue, I'm not so sure. That's not very reassuring to me. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. I appreciate. Next up, Deborah Westcott. Please come forward, state your name and residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Deborah Westcott, and I live in Boring, which is in Clackamas County. and I'm here on behalf of Mark Schull. I have lived in Clackamas County for nearly 45 years. I have raised my family, paid my taxes, and been a law-abiding citizen. I voted to elect Mark Schull to the position he holds as Clackamas County Commissioner. I voted for him because he represents me and my values as a Christian conservative. I'm very pleased with Mr. Schull and will vote for him in the future if he runs again. I would ask you, his fellow commissioners, to listen to him because he represents the voice of many rural Clackamas County residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, and I hope I pronounced the name correctly, Lynn Vinishi. Please, yeah, please state your, I can't read your writing either, and please state your residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Board, for the work that you do, and thank you for this
Please speak in,
opportunity.
we have
and-
trouble hearing.
And speak up?
Yes.
And my name is Lynn. I'm from Sandy. And I want to say I've known Mark for several years. Many of the people who voted for Mark actually know Mark. We didn't just vote for a party. We voted for Mark. We didn't vote for him to spend all his time defending himself for something from his past. We all have a past. And I firmly believe that if he wasn't conservative, this waste of time would not be happening. No one from outside the county should be making decisions about our commissioner. And Chair Smith, I especially appreciate your comments earlier about the Metro waste and how it's not, the money doesn't belong to the board or Metro, it belongs to the ratepayers. And in the same way, I believe it's the voters of Clackamas County who should be the ones to decide, not the board or anyone from outside the board who should decide. And it was the voters who put Mark Schull here, and I believe no one except the voters should be allowed to remove him. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Up next is Yvonne Lazarus. Please come forward, state your name and residence, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Yvonne Lazarus, Milwaukee. I'm here to talk about the veterans. Gary, I don't know how you came to the conclusion you came to on Tuesday's meeting. I personally believe that it should be disbanded, reconstituted, real open disclosure. You know, what I saw there, it was disgusting. No commissioner, I don't care who the commissioner is, should have been treated the way Mark was treated that day. None. I believe that they should have to have a task from you and report to you monthly, from what I saw. I hope you will all think about this, because it's important, and it's important to the veterans. That's about it, except since I want to talk about this garbage thing. I got confused up here because of what they were saying about the rates. I wanted to talk about over on Jennifer Street. That goes right up against the Clackamas River. I think there's 5 cities that drink out of that river. And when I said that it was, how big did I say that thing was? It was 3 tax lots. It's 26 acres, and it's 4.6 miles from the existing transfer station. I don't understand all the ins and outs, but my gut tells me this is a bad thing. Just like this thing with the veterans. It's a bad thing, too. And I hope you guys get it straightened out and that you don't just let it, say, oh, well, in June, June 1st? I hope on June 1st there's good news. And I hope that these meetings are Zoomed so that we can watch it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lazarus. Up next, J.R. Knotts, please come forward, state your name, residence, and you have 3 minutes.
John Knotts, Sandy, Oregon, out in the county. Thank you. Taxpayers are number one, and Paul, I'm glad a light came on for you. That's humor there. That's humor. You can't see it. That's humor, Paul. That's humor. It's a joke. I received some information when I walked in today, and since I usually operate nonpartisan and I just throw things off the cuff, I want to thank you all for coming to the conclusion on assessed value and real market value for the taxpayers. Now we have work to do to get a hold of them and make sure all the paperwork's in order. As far as CAMA, 1999, the way this came about was I had a direct conversation with the tax assessor's office. It wasn't unpleasant, it was just direct. How they assessed my property, at which time we found out that I've been taxed for a full basement that never existed. That correction was made. I was told I could only go back 3 years. I didn't care about it any longer. 12 months later, I was going to file an appeal with the Department of Revenue. And in lieu of that, they wanted to read what I was being taxed for. We found 1,000 square feet of concrete that didn't exist. Again, the record was adjusted. I didn't go retroactive. The paper I received today said they've got 5 years. I was told you could only roll it back 3. It's beside the point. Several years after that, I checked on the exemption for veterans. I was rated at the lower one. I was told it was a mistake. It would take 6 months to straighten it out. After I contacted the Veterans Administration in Salem, they called me back and said, Mr. Knotts, the county will issue you a corrected tax statement. I know they told you they couldn't, and don't feel bad. It happened to all veterans in Clackamas County. It was not a mistake. Moving on, I would like to talk about some land use. I'd like to talk about bringing the film industry back in, lost revenue in that area, what we can do now after we get out of the Fauci virus syndrome. We can talk about what we're going to do with land, because 2 businesses that have exploded during the last 12 months are RVs and boats. Sanitation has also, but we can discuss that later. I have presented to some of you, after I spoke at the meeting on the 18th, a letter that was sent to me by Commissioner Smith. I received it on the 25th. After I spoke here and I spoke on the Veterans Advisory Council, my response to that fantasy, you find attached to it. And if you want to discuss it at some later point, we can. I don't care for some of the things in it, but that's a personal opinion. I'm above getting upset, albeit I thought it was a little childish, because everything seemed to be okay on March 18th. So if you need to address that letter and the corresponding cease and desist order, we can do that. Thank you very much.
Yes, if you would like to discuss that with me, we can at a later date, Mr. Knotts. You betcha. Up next is Les Poole. Please state your name, residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Les Poole, Gladstone. I wanted to make a real brief recommendation that folks go to Clackamas Live on Facebook and watch the video that I posted there yesterday of Sawtell Road and the wildfire conditions and the horrendous situation south of Malala. You'll also find on Clackamas Live that I've devoted considerable energy towards Highway 224 and the Clackamas River watershed. It's horrific up there. It is just really bad. And anything that we can do to not only improve the situation, but let the public know that we're not going to be up at Bagby next month. The road's closed. I've been up to that roadblock, and some of the folks come up there, they want to go collecting firewood and doing all kinds of things, and it's still very dangerous. So the wildfires have left a terrible imprint, and I just encourage the county and all the folks to be informed and do whatever we can in that vein. I'm going to segue very quickly to something that's troubling. I'll be leaving an excerpt from an email that was sent to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and CC'd to the county, and that was done on the 9th of January, 2 days before Monday morning when the BCC was informed that Mark Scholl had posted things on Facebook, and there were a lot of concerns about that. First of all, that email was sent to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and CC'd to the county on the 9th. I find it incredibly troubling that that very same day, Commissioner Fisher decided it would be a good time to have a barbecue and invite Mark Scholl over for a barbecue. Shortly after that barbecue, that little friendly visit, which I just find to be very suspect, the letter was sent out. That letter requested, regardless of whether you agree with the writer's opinion, the writer was Chris Waller, that letter requested that Mr. Scholl apologize and maybe see some diversity training or something. That didn't happen. I'd like to know why. I think a lot of folks would like to know why. I'd like to know why Mr. Scholl was treated so much differently than others, especially given the unmitigated support for conduct by the previous chair that was just bizarre.
Thank you.
So I would like to know why we
thank you,
invited
Les. Your
Mr.
time is
Scholl
up.
to a barbecue,
Les,
and why
please.
Mr. Scholl did not have a reasonable process.
Thank you,
Thank
Les.
you.
You know the rules more than anybody here, don't you? You just want to be a little ornery today. That's okay. I get it. I feel that way sometimes, too. Okay. Up next, Bill Ware, please come forward, state your name and residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Well, good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. My name is Bill Ware from Damascus. The first thing I wanted to talk about was this Veterans Committee. I had the opportunity to see that meeting in which the whole meeting was devoted to piling on Commissioner Scholl. I watched as a number of attendees castigated Commissioner Scholl and another commissioner in attendance sit silently by. What happened there and the Budget Committee were there were members that were trying to strip Commissioner Scholl's salary. It is apparent that at least these two committees have political cadres advancing partisan politics. In the recommendations given by the county administrator last Tuesday, there's a glaring omission, namely transparency. It makes one wonder what is going on in the other committees that drive policy and spend taxpayer money. I would again recommend that all these committees be broadcast online, the agendas be published on the county website ahead of time, and that all members are listed and county-issued emails for each of them. The other thing I wanted to talk about is starting on July 6, 2020, 5 months ago, after Commissioner Humbertson lost the election, Commissioner Fisher's campaign fund was giving a political consulting firm, since that time, a total of $12,500, the most recent being $2,500 each on February 10th of this year and March 2nd. This campaign consulting firm quotes Karl Marx on its homepage. On January 15th of this year, AFSCME Local 350, representing over 700 employees of various municipalities within Clackamas County, including 300 directly employed by the county itself, wrote this commission demanding the immediate resignation by Commissioner Shull, as it deemed censure was insufficient. On February 2nd, a check in the amount of $10,000 was given to the Friends of Sonia Fisher's fund by this union. This is an extraordinary amount. The only campaign I'm aware of currently is the effort to recall Commissioner Shull. My questions are to Commissioner Fisher is, are you participating in the recall of Commissioner Shull through your campaign fund? And are you a lobbyist for the public employees? Thank you.
That is all the cards that I have today for in-person testimony. Christina, do we have anybody online?
I have one person online.
Go ahead, please.
That's going to be Christine Kennedy. Christine, if you can unmute yourself, state your name and where you're located. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Christine Kennedy. I live in Lake Oswego. And I'd like to thank you for your time today, Chairman Smith, Commissioners, and Administrator Schmidt. It's been 90 days since Ms. Smith, and Mr. Shull started their 4-year terms, and it's been quite a 90 days for sure. Absolutely, we're all concerned about the county, how we're managing the pandemic, recovery from economic hardship related to that, as well as the wildfire and the windstorms. There is new federal leadership and new funding, which offers an opportunity as we look at how we're going to recover. We all know that the recovery from COVID-19 is complex. There's a lot of, we're just tired of it. But it's important to continue with the efforts, and I appreciate the vaccine clinics in Clackamas County. Great work. And Ms. Chairman Smith, if you would really support vaccine, I think that's going to be our ticket out of this. And by July, we're going to be really dealing with vaccine hesitancy. I just would like to say, in terms of Administrator Schmidt's assessment of the VAC meeting, it was a difficult meeting, a difficult conversation. There was a lot of heartfelt comments. I understand that there was, that Commissioner Shull knew about what was going to be discussed and what the agenda was and what the questions were for him. I was really disappointed. I thought he was really non-responsive, and all he did was take a position to defend himself. He didn't thank or seem to respect the heartfelt comments from the people on the committee. I also object to his comment that xenophobia is fear of immigrants, new immigrants, he said. It really is a larger concept, and I would just invite him at this time to do more study on what xenophobia is. It's really bigger. It's fear of others, it's fear of strangers, people that aren't like you. And I think that's our challenge right now, is how do we come back together? There was talk about the old days. What did we like about the old days? Were we connected? Were we more compassionate? Were we more kind to each other? We've got an opportunity to grow together, build a stronger Clackamas County. This is not about being positional. And I think we just all need to take a deep breath and really understand what leadership in 2021 is all about.
Thank you very much, Christine. Christina, is there anything, anybody else?
That is it.
Gary, what's up next?
Next is County Administrator update. I will provide this. First, Commissioners, under the COVID-19 Emergency Declaration 2020-14, I signed a contract on your behalf. It was for Health, Housing, and Human Services, a sub-recipient grant agreement amendment with Ant Farm Incorporated to provide CARES Act-funded rent assistance services. The amendment added $7,482,463 to the contract for now a total contract value of $9,319,588. All funds are COVID relief funds from the state and federal government, as well as additional state and federal grants. No general funds are involved. The contract duration is until December 31st, 2021. I signed the contract on March 30th so that the dollars could be released that day, which they were. So today, Commissioners, I'm seeking your ratification of this contract I signed on your behalf.
I'll accept a motion.
I move to ratify this item.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Scholl and seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Any further discussions? Seeing none, Christina, would you please call the poll?
Of course, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. What's up next, Gary?
Thank you. A quick few items of good news I'd like to share. Next week, April 5 through 9, is National Public Health Week. And as you know, our Public Health Division staff have played a critical role in our 3 disasters this year, COVID-19, the wildfires, and our ice storms. But there's a lot of work they do that you do not know about and that our public does not know about, such as, because they do it behind the scenes as part of their day-to-day work, such as restaurant inspections, maternal and child health assistance, and infectious disease control and prevention. Starting on Monday, our staff will be offering a quiz to help the public know more about what our Public Health Division does and how our Public Health Division protects the safety and health of all Clackamas County residents. So this quiz will be promoted on our social media and our county website. Thank you to our public health team for all that they do. Next, Doug Van Zant, an employee in our Health, Housing, and Human Services Department, received a great recognition I'd like to honor or recognize him for. Doug is a workforce specialist in H3S. And David, a manager with Roadrunner Home Bake, a take and bake pizza maker in Gladstone, wrote a note about David, which is this: Roadrunner Home Bake appreciates Doug's efforts in making our business and his clients' work transition successful. Over the years, Doug has continued to improve upon previous referrals by really taking time to understand our needs. Our current workforce includes 10 referrals, representing 45% of our employee team. We really appreciate and respect Doug's commitment to being so engaged with the clients and our company. I don't think a week has gone by in the last 5 years where Doug has not checked in. I'm sure not many people can say that.
Wow.
So thank you for the note. Thank you to Doug Van Zant and our workforce specialist team for all they do to support Clackamas County. Commissioners, on your tables are 2 placards that we prepared for you, which is a finalized copy of your board goals, which we call Performance Clackamas, your 5 strategic results and 10 strategic priorities, as well as the board agreements that you agreed earlier this month as part of your working board agreements. So we have them laminated on your tables to help remind you during your course of business on both topics. And then finally, Commissioners, next Thursday, April 8th, your business meeting will be an evening business meeting at 6 p.m. It's the second Thursday of the month. So next Thursday, April 8th, will be an evening meeting at 6 p.m. That is my update. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Gary. That was very nice to hear about our employees doing such good work. Now it's time for Commissioner comments. Commissioner Savas, you're up first.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be brief today. I just want to restate my concern about the spike in COVID cases. Last week, I made an appeal to everyone who was listening to, mask up, and realizing the cohort that seems to be experiencing the greatest increase is putting the rest of the citizens in this county in jeopardy when it comes to their jobs and their livelihood and the businesses and everything else. So I think there's a lot of people that are maybe not taking the precautions. I encourage them and their parents, their friends, their family to ask them to mask up and take the precautions and not put us all at risk. And again, that letter, we need to move on that letter. I don't want to see the rest of our constituents be put at risk for something it is completely out of their control and as a result of a directive, which, getting the schools back open, I think is a good thing. But there's got to be some parameters to that that gets to this. But we're not going to slow the rate of increase by closing businesses down if this cohort is the one that's actually a substantial part of the increase. Gary, I like this. Great to have it on board. Great to have it here. I would just ask my colleagues to honor this. And I think earlier this week, I had an experience with number 8. And I assume that these rules also apply in executive session as well. And I'm hoping that my colleagues, we can maybe take that into consideration, that all of these, and I think we have a responsibility to one another to hold each other accountable. But I think the one that probably bothers me the most is not respecting one another in the sense that we interrupt. Is that the word? Is that where it is? Is it under 8? Oh, I'm sorry, I misread that. Wherever that is, where is that?
Number
Gary?
8A.
8A. There we go. There it is. It was 8A. Okay, thank you. Anyhow, I don't have very much else today. It's been a long meeting, and Chair, I need to excuse myself at this time.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead. Commissioner Savas, thank you kindly for all the good work you did today. You're much appreciated. And some of us don't have the white sheet at the dais, just letting you know. That's okay.
Sorry, Chair.
We'll get it next week. Up next for Commissioner Communication is Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Smith. I just wanted to comment, we did a tour of one of our vaccination sites in Wilsonville. It was pretty remarkable to see how orderly and efficient things were and well-organized. Commissioner Schrader and Commissioner Scholl also attended, and they may also have some insights. But I was very impressed. I think that is a key way out of this virus, is to get as many people vaccinated who want the vaccination, and Clackamas County is doing a great job. We just have to keep at it. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Appreciate your work today. Commissioner Schrader.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I just want to reiterate something that how much I appreciate all my colleagues, Commissioner Fisher for her heart, with all the work she's been doing with housing. She's been really absolutely, it's been critical, her work, to really bring us forward in this county. So thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Savas left, but again, I appreciate his comments today. He has a wonderful eye for detail. And I am proud to work with him on transportation, and also as we look forward through we keep moving through the pandemic. Commissioner Chair Smith, as I said, you have direct leadership, and I absolutely find that phenomenal. I enjoy it so much.
Thank you.
And I have a surprise for you, Commissioner Scholl, okay? Here we go. So, and I wanted to share this with you because I know that you're interested in veterans, and we want to really get our Veterans Advisory Committee, kind of on a pathway where we're really connecting with the community. So I got a quick note from the Department of the Army headquarters, the 88th Readiness Division from Fort Snelling, Minnesota. It was dated March 18th. I got it March 28th, and I've been meaning to share it. And it says, Dear Commissioner Schrader, thank you very much for your time on March 5th during our meeting to discuss the relationship between the 88th Readiness Division and the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners. I enjoyed the dialogue and appreciated your thoughts. I trust it was a worthy investment of your time to learn a little more about the U.S. Army Reserve and the 88th Readiness Division. I look forward to becoming more engaged in Clackamas County in the future as we look for ways to partner on our community initiatives. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to my team. And this is from Darrell J. Guthrie, Major General, U.S. Army, the Commanding General. And he wrote a little note, thank you for your support of the Army Reserve. I truly enjoyed the discussion. So Commissioner Shull, we now have an opening with Major General Guthrie to educate our community as a whole, I hope through the Veterans Advisory Committee, about what the military does for us, how we can continue to help military families. I think we have some openings, and again, I think we have a real connection. We're reconnecting really, I think, pretty in a really good way with Camp Withicum. So go fight win. We will be able to, I think, really get some great stuff done for our veterans here in Clackamas County. And then another thing with that, I'm going to talk about the Oregon Military Museum Project. It's a historic park, and it will honor the men and women who have served our state and nation in our armed forces. This world-class museum complex will provide a comprehensive educational resource for preserving and sharing our rich military history. Through our veterans' stories, our children's and future generations will learn the importance of citizenship, heroism, and sacrifice. And they are having a fundraiser, and I'll put this up next week so we can all see it on the screen on Memorial Day at the Stickman Brewing Company in Tualatin. And 10% of the taproom sales will be donated to the Oregon Military Museum Project at Camp Withicum. So I think we ought to invite the VAC and have us all go there and lift a glass so we can help support the Military Museum at Camp Withicum. I would like to invite all my commissioners to be there.
Wow.
And it will be fun, and
When is
it's Memorial Day.
Oh.
Sunday, May 30th.
Okay.
So I'll have it next week. I didn't have time to get it. They just came in. I'll have it so we can all see it. So lift a glass to our veterans and help out the Military Museum. Okay, I have two quick slides. Journey down the Clackamas. Christina. Okay, twice-a-month workshops for Journey Down the Clackamas happening throughout the year. So people have been committed to this, and so we're going to invite you to join for the future conference topics, from geology to climate, fisheries to forestry, recreation, and cultural and policy issues. The next workshop event is April 6th. Clark Neuendorf, president of the Geology Society of the Oregon Country, will present about the geology of the lower and upper Clackamas Basin. Go to the clackamasriver.org to register. You can look through all the upcoming workshops and even view the ones you've missed. And look up wonderful volunteer opportunities to make a difference. Sign up for the Clackamas River Basin Council newsletter and more. And second, yes, Commissioner Fisher mentioned that both Commissioner Shull and I and Commissioner Fisher were at Clackamas Community College the other day, and we were listening to Chief Cassandra Ulvin and Captain Peter Gordon from the Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, and they were actually managing that vaccination clinic, doing a fantastic job, and they gave a real shout out to CERT and the fire district. Really recommended, and Commissioner, Chair Smith, I'm mentioning it to you because you're really involved with our FEMA work, that they really want to see the CERT team beefed up. They'd like to see us support them. They'd like to see if we can give some CARES money to even giving some of our volunteers a per diem. So that's Gary, that's a conversation for issues, but you can see folks below. That's where they have had their vaccination, and they are waiting to make sure they don't have a reaction. So Christina, do we have any other? I think that's it, right? Okay, great. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Martha. Appreciate that. You've done good work as well. Commissioner Shull.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Smith. Greetings to the people of Clackamas County who are watching these proceedings today. On transportation and housing, I had an excellent briefing this morning from Dan Johnson from the Department of Transportation and Development on the big picture on housing and transportation. People ask me all the time, how is the progress on new vehicular lanes to reduce congestion and coming along, and what is the progress on increasing housing supply in order to make housing more affordable? So I'm working to put together a slate of tasks on housing and transportation that I, as your new commissioner, can take action on to respond to the wishes of my constituents. And I encourage the folks at Clackamas County to contact me at mscholl@clackamas.us on any ideas you have on housing and transportation. On the Veterans Advisory Council, as you know, on Tuesday we received from the county administrator the list of corrective actions for the VAC to take with a requirement to report back to the BCC by 1 June. The valuable testimony of veterans was taken into consideration in our discussions. I am hopeful that the appropriate actions will be taken. 1 June will come soon, lots of work, little time. Also, on Veterans Affairs, I had the privilege of a tour of Fort Kennedy last week by Tina Kennedy. It is a nonprofit that supports veterans, and I got to tell you, I was very impressed with their effectiveness and their ability for outreach to help veterans of this county and the surrounding area, by the way. They're located right here in Clackamas County, right off Southeast 82nd. If anybody out there in the county knows a veteran who needs support, of course, we have our veterans assistance here in the county, but also know that Fort Kennedy is there to help. Just give them a call. On the Council on Forest Trust Lands Counties, last Thursday there was a meeting with the CFTLC. The attorney for the council, John DiLorenzo, gave an update on the status of the $1.65 billion judgment in favor of the counties that are involved in the lawsuit, of which Clackamas County is one. If we had proper harvest on our forest lands, this suit would never have occurred. Our fire hazard would be less, our forest products communities would be much more economically healthy. I urge people of Clackamas County to contact your state legislator and express your desires to see responsible, sustained harvest. Also, at OregonCounties.org, you can see the Zoom recording of the 25 March meeting we had last week to get more details on the status of your forest lands. And on emergency management, like Commissioner Fisher and Commissioner Schrader mentioned, yesterday we had the pleasure of a tour of the COVID vaccination site in Wilsonville, administered by the Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue and Community Emergency Response Teams. They ran a very professional and well-organized vaccination site, and I heard high praises for the critical assistance that was provided by our CERT personnel. And I would like to see our county take a look at how we can increase CERT training, that's Community Emergency Response Team training, and how we can assist those CERT teams in the future. Finally, on COVID, I agree 100% with Commissioner Savas. We cannot ask the businesses of Clackamas County to return to the high-risk category. That is going to be very costly to many businesses. So stay healthy, stay happy, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl, for your good work. Yesterday, Commissioner Savas and I conducted interviews for 4 hours to fill 3 positions on the Clackamas County Planning Commission. It was very interesting. We had multiple applicants, and it's going to be a really hard decision. Many people who are so qualified. Unfortunately, some will not be appointed, but hopefully we can find a place for the ones who don't get appointed to the Planning Commission for other commissions. And it was just very heartening for me to see so many volunteers want to step up who are so well qualified. Also at noon yesterday, the board spoke to the Clackamas County Business Association at their noon luncheon via Zoom. It was a very good roundtable discussion about COVID recovery, what the plans are for the county. But more importantly, we got to listen back from our business community on what they hope to see, mainly from the $81 million that's coming our way. The first payment we hear could be on early as May 11th, would be half the amount of around $40 million. Stay tuned for that news. We'll see if it comes to fruition or not. With that in mind, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. I want to thank my commissioners for all the hard work every single one of you did today, and all the people who came forward to make this a great business meeting. And Gary, if that's all, we are adjourned.